Okay, here we go. Today we have Dirk, one of the co-founders of the Black Disciples. Welcome to VladTV.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Okay, so this is our first time sitting down. So I want to get into your whole story, starting from the very beginning. So you grew up in Chicago?
Yes, I did. I'm originated from Robbins, Illinois, where I was born at, but I was brought to Chicago to be born. I didn't return back to Chicago until 1958, which I was 4 years old at that time.
Okay, so what area in Chicago were you living in as a teenager?
Inglewood area.
Okay, so at that time in Inglewood, a group of young men, including you, actually formed a group together. And tell me about that group.
I did not form that group during that time. That group was already present. You had the Devil Disciples, you had the Gonzatos, and you had the Speed King, which my brother was king of the Speed Kings at that time, which name was Pluto. The Devil Disciples came about from a guy by the name of Laverne. And he was the one that originally started the Devil Disciples. Then David came in after him and took over. And when David took over, that's where really I fall in at, because that's who I really knew. That's who I really came in up under, was David Barksdale.
Now, at the time, the area where you guys were living, it was originally a white neighborhood, but then more black people started to move into that neighborhood, and that kind of caused some friction between some of the white kids in that area. Is that correct?
No, sir, not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, we always live mainly around black peoples. The areas where you talking about is where the Stones generated from. They were the one mostly caught up in the white neighborhoods throughout there.
Okay. So when you guys formed, well, number one, the Devil's Disciples, that was around before you?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And do you know why they were called the Devil's Disciples?
All I know was from what different leaders had spoke on, such as OG, brothers like Prince Oldtimer, and others. It came from a Bible. They was all reading the Bible. They was into the Bible. They got the disciple name from the Bible. And from now, they attached Devil Disciples to it.
Okay. So what year did you actually join this group?
I came in like, when I was 7 years old, I was first picked up for holding coats from some of the friends of mine that was stealing out of Walgreens on 63rd and Halsted at the time. I can actually say from 65 on up, that's when I really began to get involved.
Okay. So you're part of the Devil's Disciples. And was David Barksdale the leader at that point?
Yeah, but you have to understand that I was a Gonzato before we even begin to holler Devil Disciple. Devil Disciple was out, but the Gonzatos is where I first started at. We hollered Devil Disciples, yeah, because that's what was going on at that time. But the Gonzatos was very much embedded and rooted into this disciple thing, just like the Speed Kings. All of us was a part of the disciple fraction, but we all represented Devil Disciples too.
Well, I believe in 1966, David Barksdale created the Black Disciples Nation. Is that correct?
No, sir, I wouldn't say that. I would say the Black Disciples was created during 1969, during the crowning of Larry Hoover, because we were different names then. We was all kind of names. And King Dave, who was known then before he became King Dave as Lil D. That's who he was originally named. His name was. And he was telling us during the time that he had crowned Larry King that we wasn't going to have no more names. That's when we started wearing the blue tams, and that's when the Black Disciples came involved, at that time.
Now, what was the relationship with the Black Disciples and the Black Peace Stones?
We fought. I think everybody was basically about the same thing, taking care of their neighborhoods. It was a lot of respect going down. We fought, we had our little wars. The relationship wasn't very good all the way up until 1969 when the LSDs came out. When the LSDs came out, there were Lord Stones and Disciples coming together as one, because I think they was getting involved with political things at that time and other things. And we came together, which I was younger. And I do know they came together to try to stop the building of the Dan Ryan, because for whatever reasons they had back then, they didn't want the Dan Ryan built. So all the organizations came together, to try to stop that from happening. And at the same time, it was for our togetherness, our oneness, to try to stop fighting each other.
Originally, Larry Hoover, his crew was called the Gangster Disciples, right?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
Larry Hoover was an ambassador for Jeff Ford. Larry Hoover crossed over to us from being the Stones. Tennessee, Prince Oldtimer, they used to talk a lot. Even though we fought against Larry Hoover them, all the way up into 69, we fought them. They was a part of Jeff Ford. When King Dave put the crown on Larry Hoover's head, Larry Hoover became, the king of the supreme gangster nation. And they had to accept our emblem flag, our documentations. They had to accept that. So Hoover became king of the gangster nation. King Dave was king of the disciple nation. We had our meetings on 63rd and Stewart and 61st and Halsted. Hoover had his meetings on 68th and Halsted. That's where all the gangsters met at. If we was Black Gangster Disciples, that means we would have had our meetings together. That means that King Dave and King Hoover would have sit at the throne together, you see. And that means that Prince Tennessee and Prince Oldtimer would have been sitting on that throne with them. We had our meetings, they had their meetings, but they was a part of our branch at that time because they came in as our brothers.
Okay, so what exactly is the Black Gangster Disciples Nation?
The Black Gangster Disciple Nation represent the disciples as a whole. A lot of brothers went on to call themselves Black Gangster Disciples.
Got it. Well, after King David and Larry Hoover came together and formed this partnership, then Larry Hoover and another member, they were convicted of murder. And I believe Larry Hoover was given 150 to 200 years in prison?
Yeah, something like that. What happened was Larry Hoover was the king all the way up until 1971. some issues happened, where this brother named Irvin Green took over the gangster organization. Hoover did go on the run for the charge that you just mentioned. And he was later caught, I believe, up in New York somewhere. How I really don't have too much information about that. But what I do know is that he was no longer the king of the gangster nation. Irvin Green was, which Irvin Green lost his life in 1972. After that, Hoover went on to go to the penitentiary. We all met in Stateville Penitentiary. When we met in Stateville Penitentiary, some brothers tried to have him hit. They put some lies out on him about some about King David supposed to told him that if he died, he was supposed to took over, which we know wasn't the truth to the matter. It was always a lot of he say and she say that got in the picture, and caused it a lot of confusion and deception. So anyway, I come into the sale house from the tailor shop. At that time, Larry Hoover was working in the book bindery, the matrix shop. So when I come in before him, that's when it was brought to my attention what was finna take place. And when I went to certain people to require up on it, and they told me, I told them, hell no. And the person that was supposed to took the hit out, I told him to stand down. Now, at that time, I wasn't the chief in Stateville. We had an honorable chief that was calling all shots, that respected me and my brother, and knowing how close me and King Dave were. At this time, King Dave had just died, so they finna pull it. So I'm telling everybody, no, that ain't true. He ain't never told nobody that. And he even was telling people that I didn't say that. I didn't tell nobody that. I didn't say David was supposed to make me the king. He said, I didn't say none of that. And then he also said, I'm not even the chief no more. I don't have nothing to do with that no more. And so I said, wait a minute. These brothers over here believe in you. You dig? And when we asked them and they said, yeah, I said, then you still their king. Like that, you see. And I went against, you dig, my branch, my people, and half of them on the street right now can verify anything I'm saying. And when I stood up for that brother, he became the king again over them. And that was in Stateville Penitentiary, D-House. We were finna go to war with each other about this man's rights.
Well, why were you in prison at the time?
I was in jail for robberies and I don't know if it was attempt murder, but I believe it was robbery, things like that.
Got it. Okay. So King David ends up
Wait
dying.
Wait a minute. And it has something to do with, I was supposed to jump on the school teacher at that time.
Got it. Well, King David ends up dying in 1974. He was 27 years old at the time?
Yeah, I believe so. Somewhere around that age. I believe so.
Okay. And he died from kidney complications?
Yes. Years ago, when Hoover and them first got with us, they was at the Guys and Gal. Some of the Stones came, but anyway, a call came to the center. King David and everybody ended up going down there. Something happened with one of the security guards, from my understanding. And it led to everybody fighting and going outside. One of the members accidentally supposed to drop a rifle, which went off, hit King Dave in the side. And Hoover then went and got his mother brand new car. They put King Dave in and rushed King Dave to the hospital.
Okay, and King David ends up dying at age 27.
Yeah, from kidney failure. He had lost both of his kidneys. His brother was the one gave his kidneys to him. And his brother recently just passed away. But it was his brother that kept him living long as he lived, you see. But he was told that if he didn't take care of himself, that this would happen within 4 to 5 years.
When King David passed, considering how close you were, how did you feel?
It hurt it. It was like losing a father.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss. Well, after King David passed, from what I read, it seems like at that point, the black disciples and the gangster disciples started to sort of split. Is that true or no?
People keep saying that we split it. We never split it. Hoover was, wait a minute. Yeah. Look, Hoover was the king of the gangster nation. And King David was the king of the disciple nation. It was never no split. Even though Hoover them had the same laws and teachings as we had during that time. Because they had to accept that becoming a part of us. The heart, the horns, the devil tail, and the pickforks. And whatever saying and things that we had going to, colors, and things like that. I don't know why people keep saying it was a split. It was never no split. You know what I'm saying? And people that don't really know the truth of things is a lot of rumors out here. And that's all you keep hearing, we split. We ain't never split. Even though some of the disciples and gangsters are fighting today, we don't know where that come from. That didn't come from us. But what I do know is when the government took our leadership away and other leaders, things fell like they fell. And if you remember, they got on TV and said this is what they wanted to happen when they took the leadership away. They wanted us to turn on each other. So they played a part in us turning on each other, interrupting all the peace that we had going on. Because a lot of people did call themselves black gangster disciples. That's how they felt. You know what I'm saying? And when this happened, it happened because, let me tell you this. I came home in 1975. I caught a murder. I went on the run. I got caught. I came back in 1976. When I come back, the nation was so tore up. It was messed up on Hoover's side and on King Dave's side. You had people in the jails falsely running things, making people think that they was there with Hoover, they was there with King Dave. Everything was in an uprising. The King Dave wasn't being respected. Larry Hoover, even though he wasn't deceased, he wasn't being respected. So when some of the guys came to me, and these guys been a part of the nation for years since we were shorty, coming up as Gonzatos. And they said, man, everybody gone. Now, we had three people to run to be a king. You had OG, which did nobody elect him. You had Old Timer, Prince Old Timer, did nobody elect him. And you had Shorty Freeman, which did nobody elect him. But when I got back in 1976, I was in jail when I put this nation back together. You see, when I wrote the literature, I put the literature down. I made a few changes. You see what I'm saying? But I put everything back where it was supposed to be. You see, so I told everybody to go home because I was tired of everybody sitting up here talking about King Dave said this, King Hoover said that. I told everybody King Dave is deceased now. Everybody go home. And we'll get together with the original leaders in a minute, you dig, and put this bond back together. You see, but we didn't want nobody constantly saying King Dave said this, King, because a lot of things happened before King Dave died. You see, and these same people that were talking all this mess were some of the same people that betrayed King Dave Trust, that betrayed Hoover Trust, you see, and none of these people is out the picture. They using their names, they lying on them, they being everything other than who they really is. You dig, out here camouflage because they know neither person can step up and say, no, that's a lie, that's a lie. You dig, so I stepped up and began to do what I had to do as the Don of the organization.
Right, because as I was going through and researching, the whole story, and it's a very long and, rich and complicated story. I mean, according to things I read, it said at one point, you split away and you brought back the name the Black Disciples, and certain people went with you, and then there was also somewhat of a civil war that started to happen.
No, sir, it didn't happen like that. We maintained the love and the peace with the gangster nation. The only thing that occurred was some of the old timers wanted things to be their way because they was extorting members, they was lying about history and the truth, and I stepped up and I put the truth out as I knew it at that time. I was young when I actually came into this. You will have a lot of people that say I was too young. No, I wasn't too young. David slept at my house. He ate from my table. Even Hoover used to come to my house. He visited my brother Larry, sometimes my brother Pluto. They had that relationship, you know what I'm saying? And I look at people and I list the majority of these people that's out here with this mess was at my house. They stayed at my house. They ate from my table. But they want to further go on to try to trick these people that don't really know. And I step up and tell the truth. So they want to try to put false images on me or bring different things up when what I tell you is the truth. And we can get anybody and prove this is the truth. You see? So we got a lot of wickedness going on, even right to this day. They want to call themselves elders. But in truth, these is some of the same people in 1971 went against King Dave, went against him, split the organization up, the disciple organization. And there were very few of us that stood by his side. You see what I'm saying? But the rest now they want to pop back up like they had a hell of a part. No. If the truth be told, it'll put them to shame. And there's a lot of these guys out here don't know the truth and they're being misled. That's why we got so much violence on our streets today. That's why these young guys is doing what they doing, because some of the elder guys that took over when all of us went to these different penitentiaries misled them, misinformed them. That's why we having the difficulties we having on these streets right now.
Well, you mentioned that you were on the run for a murder at one point that you ultimately got caught for. What was that situation about?
I went to my cousin's party, which I was his guest. Some stones came in. They didn't want to pay their little quarter, whatever, that they were paying at the door. They come in rowdy. And it just went from there. And one of them got killed. Something happened to a couple others. And I went on the run.
When you were finally convicted, how much time did you get?
14 to 20.
Okay. And how long did you end up serving?
I ended up doing 9 years and 9 months on that bit there.
Got it. By this time, you had been involved in this for a while. After catching that murder charge, did you ever think like, maybe I should get out of this life? Because that could have turned into a life sentence for you. You got off relatively light, for a murder.
Well, no, I never thought like that, because I never thought that we was gang banging. I never thought that we was against the public, the people. It wasn't like that with the organizations that was built up. The Stones, the Vice Lords, the Hoover guys. It wasn't like that. We really believed in our community. We really believed in our families. And we called ourselves keeping our community safe, and things even usually still happen. Now, I stayed in this to try to curb a lot of things that's going on right today. See, once you get out, you don't have no more say-so. But by you staying involved, you can help people. You see, you got people being forced into these gangs or organizations today that it's by force. And somebody got to be there to help, you see, or it ain't gonna never get right. So if we get enough people that really believe in what we were doing back then, which a lot of people do believe, man, we can come together and try to stop a lot of what's going on. Because what's going on is because there's no real leaders out here that's willing to step up to the plate and say enough is enough.
Well, who is Jerome Freeman, and what exactly is your relationship with him?
We was, you can say we almost relative, because his blood is mixed into our family, and we were good friends coming up, we did things together. We ran together. We was in St. Charles together, on the street together. He was a guy that I had a lot of love for, even though somewhere along the line we fell out about a mishap. But the law was the law, and wasn't nobody bigger than the law. And if you break the law, I don't care who you is, ain't no big eyes to little U's. You're responsible for your actions and deeds.
Now, tell me who Mickey Bull was in your relationship with him as well.
Mickey Bull was one of the guys that's been with the nation for a long time. When I got back from California, he was one of the guys that stepped up to the plate and said, ain't nobody else left. Your brother gone, King Dave gone, the other guys ain't doing nothing. Wasn't nobody doing nothing. They dropped the ball and they knew it. You see, so Mickey Bull, all us was in the Cook County Jail. Mickey Bull, Candy, a few of us. When we had brothers on the street like KP, all them brothers, they was on the street. They had our back. They were pushing things on the street. But Mickey Bull was one of the major players in this because that brother, you dig, stood and fought hard just like the rest of us to make that new day shine.
Well, you get out of prison in 1982, is that right?
No, 1984.
84, okay. So you get out in 84, and I mean, according to what I read, it said that Mickey Bull took over the Black Disciples and made peace with the gangster disciples and everyone else. Is that accurate or no?
Sir, I cannot say that. You know, it was always peace, but we had different fights to break out. But no, Mickey Bull did not do that. I don't know where that came from. Mickey Bull was up under me, and he followed law and protocol. You see, we was at peace with all GDs anyway. You know, all gangs, we was at peace with them. We fought those that fought us. Anybody that came to us with any problem, we fought back. We didn't start fight, we fought back. But they was always our brothers. We had a brotherhood.
What exactly is the Folk Nation and the Folk Nation rules?
You know what? I can't tell you nothing about the Folk Nation or their rules. I can tell you about Black Disciple. I can tell you about gangsters, you dig? A little bit about Don Booney them, how we became friends and came trade both ways. But all this Folk Nation stuff started, I don't know, people were grabbing to whatever they can grab to after the leaders lost. That's just like BOS, Brothers of the Struggle. That started in Pontiac after the Pontiac 17. But they adopted it and brought it into the organization. So people did a lot of things that didn't come from the leadership. You know, it just members picked things up and they put it out there because wasn't no real leaders out here to tell them no different. They didn't have meetings no more. Just like now, ain't no more meetings. Ain't none of that, you see. So.
Got it. Okay, so you get out in 1984 and you're back on the street. And then in the next few years, that's when crack cocaine actually hit Chicago. Now, everything seemed to change when that happened. Explain to me what happened when crack hit Chicago.
It addicted a lot of us. It brought disharmony, dismays, us fighting one another, robbing one another. It created an academic amongst Black families, the organization. That's what it did. It destroyed everything that was good.
Yeah, I mean, crack cocaine hit a lot of neighborhoods horribly and destroyed families. People lost their jobs. Mothers couldn't take care of their children. And also, then you also had a lot of money that went into the neighborhoods, and people started becoming rich off of this. At one point, tell me about the significance of Randolph Tower.
Randolph Tower?
Yeah, AKA the castle.
I can't tell you nothing about that. That's something that I don't even know about.
Okay. Well, allegedly, according to what I read, the Black Disciples took over a 16-story tower called Randolph Tower and turned it into a whole drug operation. No?
No.
Okay. And eventually that tower was torn down.
Oh,
Okay, we can.
no, wait a minute. You ain't talking about the Calumet building.
I'm seeing it Randolph Tower in Washington Park.
No, no, you have to be talking about the Calumet building on 62nd and on Calumet. That's the only building that I know. It was a project that was tore down. That took a lot of brothers to jail for being supposed to be big drug dealers, and a lot of killing and murder supposed to happen out that building. But that's all I can tell you. I can't give you no further information than that.
Okay. Well, then in 1991, Mickey Bull ends up getting killed. Do you remember the whole situation around that?
No, not really. But it's a whole lot of speculation, which I don't want to get into because all the facts ain't there. But they were saying that it was Mickey Bull's fault. Some of them saying that he was crossed when he was killed. But once again, I would say these drugs, this cocaine, had a lot to do with a lot of failure to mankind, to families, and everything.
Well, after the murder happened, a war broke out in Chicago. A number of people started getting killed from both sides. Do you remember that time?
Yeah, I remember that a lot of killing jumped off. I remember it didn't last long, but some killing did happen. And people was getting killed in a lot of areas. I think it was, whether they was in it or not, if they was against to kill them. And certain people went out and did all kind of things that shouldn't have been done at that time.
Well, generally, the Black Disciples were a fairly low-key organization, meaning that they weren't in the media very much. They weren't doing interviews. They weren't on the front page of newspapers. But then all that changed in 1994 when Robert Sandifer, a.k.a. Yummy, ends up getting killed. Are you familiar with this situation?
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Okay. So tell me the story that you're familiar with.
The story that I'm familiar with, that Yummy was put up to shooting at some of the gangsters. Yummy made a mistake and hit a certain leader, niece, killed her. The certain leader supposed to told the guys that either they took care of that or they were gonna come and they were gonna start killing all of them. And it was a hit ordered on them, which shouldn't have never happened. They should have went to war, you see, because what I didn't like, y'all put him up to go shoot at somebody. He do it and make a mistake, and then he lose his life doing what y'all asked him to do. They should have fought that war. That's what they should have did, you see, because if you put him up to do it, you should have stood by his side. That's what should have happened.
Yeah, this is a very sad story. I guess Yummy was only 11 years old when he got recruited by the Black Disciples. He had a very troubled childhood. He used to steal cars and break into houses since he was 8. And he would get arrested, but he was too young, so they couldn't really keep him in jail. So they were trying to put him into foster homes, but since he was violent, they was having problems with that as well. And like you said, in August of 1994, he was sent to go shoot at some rivals, and he accidentally killed a 14-year-old girl named Siobhan Dean, who I guess is the niece of another leader. They're worried that he was going to cooperate with the police. So I guess they sent his two brothers to actually execute him. Is that true?
Well, it was two members that I know of that did it. But we have to know that Yummy ain't the only one had a bad background. A lot of young blacks went through things worse than Yummy. When we was young, we was out there stealing, robbing. We were young, 9 years old, 10, robbing, shooting guns. We were doing a whole lot of things, running away from home, stealing out our houses, you know, taking food, feeding our friends, and we did a lot of things. So I understand what happened to Yummy was a tragedy, and it hurted a lot of real peoples, you see. But Yummy ain't the only black child or white child or Mexican child that done had that life. A lot of us done had that life. It's just that it shouldn't have never happened to him like that. It shouldn't have happened.
Well, the two young men who were only 14 and 16 years old who executed Yummy, they were caught and convicted of murder. And this story became huge. Time magazine actually put Yummy on the cover of their 1994 issue. And that brought international attention to the Black Disciples. When that happened, when that newspaper, when that Time magazine came out, what really changed with the Black Disciples?
The Black Disciple had already changed. When that happened, that only made the newspaper more richer. It made the news media more richer. They used him and they got money off of him. They made it seem so bad, you see, when they should have been blaming themselves for the conditions in which we were living under at that time. You know, everything happened in these neighborhoods they created. They made to happen. They put this stuff here. I ain't saying them per se, but they know what they did to us. They sabotaged us into selling drugs, easily getting to drugs, easily getting to guns like today. Everything going on today is by design. It's by a plan. You see, they don't want people like Jeff Ford leading, Larry Hoover leading, because these were not bad leaders. These people led with authority. They led with a sense of feelings for the community and the people. You see, it had got to the place where we weren't interested in fighting, killing up each other no more. It was about coming together. You see, trying to do things politically and economically and educationally for our children. They stopped that. Now today, what you have is children can't go to school. They scared to go to school. You know, people talking about dropout. People scared to leave their house. They empty their own garbage. You got people don't go to the store. They got to send their girlfriends and mothers to the store for them for the simple reason all this madness that's going on out here. You see, because they steady taking leaders away that's trying to do stuff. They got so many people out here scared. It ain't no more disciples. It ain't no more stones, Vice Lord. The only ones it is those like myself that know what's going on and trying to do the right thing. All this other stuff going on in these streets and the community is by design. These people is doing that. The rappers killing up each other. The they domestic stuff. You know, it ain't stones against disciples, disciples against. You got people using them names, you know, but that ain't why they killing. It ain't no war with us going on. It's not that.
Well, Tupac, he was really affected by Yummy's story. He actually wrote a song where he mentioned him. He said, I want to dedicate this one to Robert Yummy Sandifer and all the other young dudes that's in a rush to be gangsters. And I remember I interviewed Tupac's group, The Outlaws, and they said that when Tupac did a show in Chicago, he actually spoke about Yummy and kind of was sort of, yelling at the black disciples over what had happened and everything else like that.
And so we go to do the show, and this dude, he lost it. He basically lost it.
On stage?
On stage.
What did he
lost
say?
It on the gang members, because there was a lot of dudes in the crowd, throwing up gang signs. The gangsters love to come to Pac shows, and there was certain songs that he would do that would just send them over the edge, so they throwing up their gang signs, but Pac is not looking at it like they saluting him. They really was just, enjoying the music, loving the fact that he up there, and this is how they celebrate. They start throwing up their hood and throwing up their signs. But Pac is thinking about Yummy Sandifer, and he lost it. And basically, threatened a crowd full of gangsters, like, yo, y'all keep killing kids, I'll murder all you motherfuckers.
Keep it clean, man.
Well, I want to quote the man right, man. He ain't say MFs. You know what I mean? That man, he said what he said, and they lost it. They lost it on us, man. We start fighting with the crowd. We throwing bottles at them. They throwing bottles at us. They trying to get on stage. It turned into a real ugly situation.
Do you remember that whole incident?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, even when Tupac did his jail interview, there was a picture of Yummy behind him, during the whole interview. So Tupac was really, really affected by it.
Yummy became what you would call something for the news media, the newspaper, to continue make money off of. Yummy, because see, if they were so much affected by what happened to Yummy, what about these kids getting killed today? What about how they losing their life? Tell me what's the difference with Yummy and all the other young people, 9 and 8 years old, 6-year-old kids out here being murdered. What's the difference? Even though they wasn't assassinated like Yummy, but they being assassinated out here innocently. People can't even sit in their own house and live, and it ain't so much that the police ain't doing their job. But I keep telling you, they know what they're doing. If you don't have the finance or these people ain't got a job, what do they expect for these people to do? They got to eat. They got to pay their bills. Now they out here carjacking, selling parts so they can get money. These young guys got children, and they actually trying to support their children. They don't come out during the day, a lot of them. They come out at night. Come on. These people know what they're doing. And where's the police at night? How's all this stuff out? You got cameras everywhere. You're supposed to have these bullet sounding things that lead the police right there. How you never catching nobody? How everybody getting away? These murders is being created.
Yeah. I agree. Well, you fast forward to 2012. Chief Keef, who's a member of the Black Disciples, he puts out the song I Don't Like. And that becomes a huge hit. It really just kind of changed the landscape in music in Chicago and hip hop in general. He's still a big star to this day. That same year, Lil Jojo, who was a gangster disciple, he releases the song BDK, which stands for Black Disciple Killer. And that, I remember we talked about this whole situation, with his brother, and that song right there, that was, although people were saying things like that, that was the first time it was actually said in a song that was popular. And then little JoJo gets killed on September 4th of 2012. He was only 18 years old. When that song came out and the violence that went around it, what were your thoughts on it being, who you are in your position?
I'm still telling you that peoples that be up under leaders like us was not in that. That wasn't happening with us. That was happening with these rappers. You see, these rappers, because everybody was making songs about killing one another, smoking one another, and then they were doing foul stuff. They were going to each other's house, shooting in their houses, or catching their family members doing. This was they doing. This is created by design. I continually tell you. And if we get out there and try to stop a lot, look, we done did marches, we done did everything. Even right now, we got youth in our care. A lot of leaders still out there got youth. But if we don't have jobs to get them, places to stay, come on. Back then, we had these resources. Today, we have nothing. Nothing to try. We don't have boy clubs, YMCAs. We don't have nothing. Even our children, if they did go outside to jump rope like they used, you got glass all over the sidewalk, all in the grass. You see, man, come on. I mean, what do y'all expect to happen or for people to do? There's no money regulating. They got money out there talking about stopping the violence. These people ain't stopping no violence. These people ain't even touched the community. They ain't tried to help no families. They ain't tried to feed no families with the money. You see, they're not really interested, but they give money away, talking about we got all these ceasefire programs going on. These people is not in the communities. Give the money to the grassroots people, to the real people, and watch what be done.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the whole, smoking thing. I mean, that same year, Tuka gets killed, and he was only 15 years old. He was a gangster disciple. And then Tuka. It was a young kid. So then I started hearing smoking Tuka, and that became a thing, which to this day is still a thing, where people talks about smoking a something pack. They take a name of someone who got killed on the other side who people love, and they'll say, I'm smoking that person's pack. And that became a thing that started in Chicago that's still going on to this day. And, it cuts deep. If you love this person, if this person's your brother, if this person's your cousin or your friend, and they start talking about smoking that person when he got killed violently, it adds a lot of insult to injury. And then you look at people like, for example, FBG Duck, who was killed recently. Before he got killed, he came out with a song mentioning all the people that were killed that he didn't get along with as well. And then shortly afterward, he gets killed in broad daylight in the middle of a public shopping area. And you're right. These murders don't get killed. These murders don't get solved. FBG Duck, unsolved. Young Pappy gets killed. Little Mister gets killed. And, even Zach TV, who was the camera person that was filming a lot of these guys, gets murdered. And to this day, they haven't solved these murders. Do you think that police want, this group of people to just kill each other and not care?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Because if they really cared, there's a whole lot they can do, and they can network with people really trying to stop the violence. They not doing it because it's more money into it for them. They want to take money back now, talking about for extra hours for police. But when they were first giving that money, they were supposed to open up programs for people that was on drugs, program for the homeless. You know, they were supposed to do good with that money. They're not doing good with that money. You see what I'm saying? You got people living in houses with no light, no gas. Ain't nobody helping them, doing nothing. You see what I'm saying? And then Father D brothers running around talking about smoking each other. That's why they being killed, because they all is doing, see, if you don't know no better, you ain't gonna do no better. But now a lot of them want to try to get out of it, but you still got some of it in it. And them the ones hide behind closed doors. And every time they get caught, they get it. You see what I'm saying? But they not respecting each other, because whatever leader they following ain't stepping down on them, telling them to stop it. They're using these organization names, and they're really not plugged with these organizations. That's why, you know, they doing what they doing, but they want to say they from the disciple roots, but they not. Every time somebody die, they name themselves after that deceased person. You see what I'm saying? But they want to holler, oh, we still this, we still that. But they not. They not. You know, then, you know what the police need to do? They need to open up drug programs, because they constantly talking about jobs. A lot of these young guys need to be detoxed from pills, you know, from this syrup, and other this lean, all this stuff, that they need to be detoxed. These people know what they doing. You know, they making this stuff easy for these young people to take. But they're not putting the statistics on TV, on the news, letting them know 100,000 youth just died from drinking lean or taking pills. They're not doing none of that. They even helping people think that it's okay. And this stuff, then you got the rappers not knowing no better. I'm drinking lean. I just dropped the Molly. Come on. If they knew what that stuff was being made with, they would stop it.
Well, right. I mean, when you talk about, you know, detox and treatment, I think in 2013, you spoke about the Southside Chicago hospital closing, and you actually called it genocide for them to close that hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they ultimately close that hospital?
Oh, no, they left roads in the hospital open. You know, they left it open. You know, we went out there and protested, you know, to let them know, because how y'all closing the hospital, then how these people going to get medical assistance? But what they did, they took a lot of stuff out of there, where like you go to Roseland, I think they still handle certain people that have been shot there, but they got to go to major hospitals. And then the police leave them land out there so long, they bleed to death, or by the time they get to the hospital, they die. But let the police get shot. They're going to rush him right then to the hospital. Crime scene or not, they rushing him to that hospital. But they don't do us like that. They leave us to die.
Yeah, I mean, just so much tragedy that really happened in Chicago, and the rappers that are affiliated with, you know, Black disciples, gangster disciples, and so forth. You know, just recently we lost King Von, who actually called himself grandson, because, you know, I don't know if he was King David's actual grandson, but I think that there was some sort of just admiration for King David. Are you familiar with King Von's story?
Yeah. King Von was an inspiration to everybody, you know, and he was a good guy. And see, that's just like I just said, you did King David like a father to me. And Von saying King David like his granddaddy, you see. And when people honor people like that, that's how they feel. You see what I'm saying? And he felt that was his granddaddy. Just like I felt, you think he was my father, because I rode around with him for real when I was young. He ate at my house. He slept at my house. You see what I'm saying? Same way with Larry. From the streets to the jails, you know, we was cool. Always been friends. You see, and it hurt me to see he's still in jail and he can't get out, and they done let all these bombers out, all these different murderers, but he can't get out because they want to say he a detriment to society, a menace to, he's not. He's really not. They character assassinating that man daily. Half the people running around here using his name don't even know him. That ain't his works that going on. At one time, we was all gang banging, shooting people, but we change. We change.
Well, when you look at your era, when everyone was still coming up, people like King David, Larry Hoover, Jeff Fort, they would make one call and 1,000, 5,000 members would show up. You fast forward to today, and I've interviewed Black disciples, gangster disciples, and so forth. And the one thing I've always heard is there's no leadership. There's a crew of guys that are on a particular block, they're friends, and so forth. They get along with who they get along with, but there is no actual leaders on either side, whether BD or GD. And a lot of times, it seems like that's what's causing a lot of the friction, and that's what's causing a lot of the violence. Would you agree?
Well, to a certain point, because what's going on now is you have a lot of old leaders that just returned from the prisons, and they still what they is, but they done changed their name. They still believe in Chief Malik. They still believe in Hoover. They still believe in David Barksdale, but they changed their name. And they got their members. You see, like myself, you dig? I created the Black Disciples. You see what I'm saying? I wrote the literature. You dig? The prayers. I came up with the clenching of the fist, the trades, which represented third world at that time. I did that. King Dave never wrote literature. Hoover never wrote our literature. Shorty Freeman never wrote our literature. Everything it is came from me, and it was meant to do good, not bad. But today, all these leaders that just got out the penitentiary, all of us was back in the old time. We fought each other to the death. You see what I'm saying about what we believe in. But we all out here now, and they got their little certain groups and things, and we got ours. Like now, I don't call myself a Black disciple, but I'm one of David's descendants. So we call ourselves 414, Disciple Nation, because King Dave is our founder and father. You see, and we trying to do right by him. So that's why we separated ourselves. But every organization out here that's doing what I'm doing, anytime we need each other, we call up on each other. I don't care if it's the Nation of Islam, Moorstein Temple of America, the Stones, the Vice Lord, we all come together. See, that ain't what's been said. See, we still here. But we ain't killing each other no more. We trying to raise our families. We trying to get with our friends and their children. That's what's going on, you see. So whatever all these other people out here doing, thinking they doing, it's hurting them. It's not a fact. We trying to help. So we trying to show them the better way. We getting a lot of people coming in. But a lot of these guys that's out here talking about they this and that is scared because they being bullied. You see what I'm saying? Into these guys. You got to get out this neighborhood, and then they doing things to them and they ain't got no backup plan. You see? But a lot of people is getting with people that ain't playing them games.
Well, when you look at this past weekend in Chicago, and right now we're filming in Chicago, so this is very close to home to you. Just this past weekend, 73 people got shot. 11 of them are dead, including a 29-year-old female officer. And that's like the biggest news right now. When you look at statistics like this, 73 people shot, 11 people dead in one city. And I'm not saying it's gang related. I'm not saying anything, but the violence is the violence. As someone that came from violence and has seen violence throughout his life, when you hear a statistic like this at your age, how does that make you feel?
I feel bad about everybody. I feel bad about the officers that just lost their life and the other one that lost his limbs. I feel bad for the innocent people who getting their cars taken or robbed, getting killed for no reason at all. Their children being taken in the process. I feel bad because these officers is put on the spot every day that they come out. You see what I'm saying? Because you got guys, and this ain't no gang problem. These guys are taking cars to sell these cars. It ain't got nothing to do with Vice Lords, Stone, GD, Beanie. It ain't got nothing to do with that. It got something to do with these guys trying to eat. They trying to get money to feed because they can't get jobs. They can't go to school, you see. And these people ain't making it no better for them. I feel bad, yeah. You see what I'm saying? All police ain't bad. And whether you believe it or not, these same people's out here that's doing a lot of crazy stuff, talking about F the police, this and that. I'm telling you, they're going to need the police one day. They're going to wish the police was there, you dig, to help them when they get trapped. Trust me. Ain't nobody trying to die. I don't care how hard they try to be. You know, if the police can save them, they'll be thankful.
Well, in your day, if something were to happen, in terms of streetwise, whoever was there will say their version of the events. But in 2021, you now have social media. Everything is on camera. People don't get into fistfights because they don't want to risk the embarrassment of losing a fist fight and having it show up on video and go viewed by 1 million people on Instagram. You have people that create songs who diss each other, and then the fans will pump it up. They'll send the song to the rivals, and then they'll talk shit to each other and so forth. As someone who came out of a space where there was no social media, it was just whoever was there and saw it, and now you have social media. Do you see a big difference in terms of the violence?
Yeah, because these guys is not up under leadership. They are not up under guidance. They doing their own thing. They don't have to report to nobody. They don't feel like they have to answer to nobody because they not embedded with no certain organization. They doing their own thing. That's why things is happening to them.
Yeah. And, and although throughout this interview, you've said that it's always been one thing. There's never been a GD and a BD thing, from your point of view, but you fast forward to now, and the gangster disciples and the black disciples, they go at it. There's wars, there's diss songs, there's violence back and forth. Do you think there could ever be a point where it could just be one thing, the way it was originally?
Look, this is what I'm telling you. A lot of the real black disciples, a lot of the real gangsters is together. These guys is not up under none of our umbrella that's doing it. These ain't black disciples and GD wars that's going on. These the rappers. These the people that fighting over their females, or over drugs. This ain't coming. Look, you got leadership out here. These guys know who they met. Everybody that mess with these different groups, they doing the right thing. These guys you see running around, they ain't up under no leadership. They don't come to meetings. They don't sit down with us. These guys doing their own thing. These the guys that I keep telling you is scared to go to school. They scared to go to the store. They scared to step outside their house. You see, because they think they're going to get seen and blown down. You got guys talking about they BDs fighting each other. You got guys talking about they GDs fighting each other. Same way with the Stones and Vice Lord. And then now they got GDs and BDs riding with them and they fighting everybody, calling themselves mixed mob or whatever they call themselves. But these guys, is doing them and they getting caught up and they dying for no reason because ain't no leadership governing them.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's sad. I interviewed FBG Duck a couple of times. And, we talked about, because he had already been through so much violence. He had, he lost his brother, through violence. And I asked why he doesn't just move out of Chicago. And he said, well, I feel safer in Chicago. Ultimately, he gets killed in Chicago. I interviewed his mother, who lost 2 children through gun violence. And she's crying through the whole interview, trying to come to grips with that. It's sad, man. It's sad. And, you wish every year it would get better and worked out, but it seems like it either gets worse or it stays the same. And, it breaks my heart to talk to someone and then 6 months later you find out that they were killed.
You have to look at why it's happening. And I'm constantly telling you that look, you got real leaders out here. You got these people need help. There's no money to put up the center. See, let me say this. How would you say it? Okay. The people behind me and the people behind them, they generations is mostly dead. Now we coming into a new generation, 8 on up, and they being killed before they even make it. They being killed. Why? Why? You know why? Because ain't nobody out here to teach them, to lead them. Ain't no program. Ain't no money given to the right people to create programs or none of that. These peoples is letting what go on happen. You see, we missing generations. Now we finna miss another generation because 8 years old, start counting. They dying. 14, 13, 12, they dying. Why? Because people don't know how to shoot guns. Because of different things jumping. Oh, there go them guys that said they smoking on woo woo woo. Oh, there go them guys that were messing with your woman. This is what's going on. And there's no accountability for what's going on. You see, the American constantly hollering, they getting up money to stop the violence. The police is them saying the same thing. But who are y'all giving the money to stop this stuff? Not the right people. You want to lie on us and say, we want the money to sell drugs. You a lie. All you got to do is keep track of where this money going and what it's going for. You see what I'm saying? That's it, But they want to keep us in the people's sight saying we bad people. We ain't the bad people. They the bad people because they really don't want to help the people. The penitentiaries is filled with us. They making more private penitentiaries as we speak. For who? For our children. Then you got these basketball players, football players, all these type of people investing money into these private penitentiaries for us. But they want to keep their children in good areas. Look at the conditions in which we live under right now, and you will feel our pain, those that have been there, done that, and we trying to still stop it and create something, but we can't. Because they won't allow us to fund it. We say, give us some buildings, let us fix them up and help the needed people. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to do that.
Well, Dirk, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. You're one of the few people that are still alive in terms of the founders, that's what now is known as the Black Disciples. You're one of the few people that really knew King David personally, one of the few people still alive that was close to Larry Hoover and so forth. So I think that what you're saying is historically very important. And I think that the words you're putting out there is really going to change a lot of people's perception of what it is. Because like you said, the media is not going to paint the Black Disciples as a community organization. It's not going to talk about the businesses that the Black Disciples started and, helping kids go to school and school lunches and so forth, stuff that you guys were doing back in the 60s. It's going to be painted a certain type of way, which is why it's important that I sit down with people like yourself to give firsthand accounts as to what really happened. And hopefully this will change the perception of some people. So I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your story.
Yes, sir. But let me say one thing. Even though I started the Black Disciples, wrote the law, did all of that, put the crown on Shorty Freeman's head, I did all of that. But we 414, we disciple nation. We up under the house of David. You see, because King David is better than what people think. This ain't King David out here, you see. People done took names and they done made them look bad. That's why we converted to 414, disciple nation, up under the house of David, because that's where we really coming from. And we do represent Larry Hoover. We do represent him because he's just as much another King Dave to us as King Dave is to us. You see what I'm saying? And we trying to do right by his name as well. You see, our struggle, our betterment is about him too.
Well, there you have it. And that's how we're going to end it. Don Dirk, really appreciate you sharing your story. Wish you all the best.
You too, sir. Thank you. Call me
Take
again.
care. Will do. Peace.
I'm looking forward. Peace.